Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing my October Spooky Read Challenge with a few new books thrown in. Now the Spooky Read Challenge is an idea of both Nicole's and Estelle's. I'll link their channels in the description below of course. And it's to do with the BookTube Reading Buddies Goodreads group, and that will obviously be linked as well. And the idea is to read a certain amount, anywhere from 1 to, well, as many as you want, a couple of dozen if you could conceivably read that many. I'm certainly not going to. Over the course of October, and they've all got a spooky, sort of scary feel to them, obviously with Halloween. I've been really looking forward to this month because there's quite a few of the books I'm very interested in. It should be a very interesting and fun month. So, on to the books I'm going to read. The first two I don't have physical copies of. I have them on my Kindle. I downloaded them for free as well, which is always handy. First book is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is obviously a very well-known book. It's very, very short. I think it's only about 120 pages or something. So it won't take me long. And it's just a interesting one that I've always wanted to read, a classic horror. The second ebook is The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. Now this is one that I hadn't heard of previously, but it does sound quite interesting. It's a horror short story collection, I believe. At least it's, well, how short, I'm not entirely sure. I actually know very little about it, and I've purposely not tried to learn too much, so it'd be a relative surprise. Now the next two books I don't have physical copies of yet. I'm waiting for them to be delivered, but I've got a slight delay on them for some reason, which is unfortunate. Oh well, these things happen. The first one is The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft, and this is a very well-known book, and obviously Lovecraft is of course, well, Lovecraft. I mean, he's got a whole genre to himself, and indeed he spawned the genre known as New Weird as well. So he's a significant author, and Cthulhu itself has got a very large sort of myth about it. So I'm quite interested to actually finally read and learn about it, because I have no idea. The second book I will have is Nosferatu by Joe Hill. This sounds a very interesting one. The copy that I will have has quite a Christmassy appearance cover, but obviously it's not exactly that Christmassy. It's obviously very much horror and psychological horror from what I know. I purposely haven't read too much into it in case I learn something that I really wish I didn't know. Right, now on to a book that I actually do have a physical copy of, and that is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Now this is a fantasy, primarily, according to Goodreads, with horror elements. It's a fairly small book, only a few hundred pages, about 300 or something. It shouldn't take me too long, and it just looks like an interesting one. The second book I have a physical copy of is I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. This is the science fiction masterworks copy, which I have an enormous amount of now. It's a small book and a very interesting horror to do with a post-apocalyptic world. The one guy who did a film of it, and in the film Will Smith plays the one-man survivor, and he is a survivor of some sort of virus type thing, and it's about his psychological sort of welfare from that I know of, because he's on his own and no one to talk to, and he goes a bit odd, and at night there are some sort of zombie things. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. So I'm very interested in this. Actually, I've been wanting to read it for a while. Now on to the final few books, which are all new, and the first of which is The Shining by Stephen King. Now I don't really have to say a lot about this book because it's about Stephen King, who's considered the king of horror, and The Shining is, well, incredibly well known by this point, so I'm not going to bother you saying anything. I have the Hodder and Stoughton version of it, which is the same edition as my Dark Tower series, so it should match on my shelf rather nicely, and I'm actually quite looking forward to this. The next one is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, and first of all, the book I think is one of the nicest books in terms of cover I've got in a while. Certainly the brightest. This is by far the brightest and most visible book, probably on my entire shelf. And the other two books as well, which I may or may not get, obviously depending on whether I like these, are also highly visible. It's about a area of the country that's been cut off, and strange things have gone on there, and some people go there to investigate, and things happen or something. I'm not entirely sure. It's psychological, of course, between, with their interactions and how they cope with what they find, and indeed how they cope with each other. So yeah, it should be a fun one. The last book is one that isn't technically part of the Spooky Reads Challenge. I thought it was, but obviously I got mixed up with something else that I saw. Anyway, I'm still going to read it regardless, and that is Creed by James Herbert. This is a psychological horror, and it sounds really, really fun. So I'm really looking forward to quite reading this as well. For my Spooky Reads Challenge, I set myself the goal of 10 books. And I know I haven't shown 10 books today, but that's because, and that's not including the 2 that I've got on order, but I'm trying to get hold of several more from the library, but I'm having to get them delivered to the library first, so I won't get them until middle of the month or sometime. But you'll see what I read, obviously, on my wrap up at the end. So that's it actually for my Spooky Reads Challenge, which is obviously a TBR for October. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or any comments about the books I'm planning to read, then let me know. I'm always interested to hear. All the links to the group and the people mentioned will be in the description below, of course. And that is pretty much it. So, see you another day. Bye for now.